I'm just going to mention it. You look holy to me. Okay? All right. They can be. We're going to talk about that because that's the problem. The deceiving looks, that's the problem. So this lesson for today, 299, by the way, just in case you weren't keeping track, this is the 299th day of the year.
Did you already get the prayer list?
Yes.
Can I have 3?
Yes.
Charlene, Tammy, and Jason.
Okay. So lesson 299 in Course in Miracles says, eternal holiness abides in me. This seemed a strange idea the first time that I saw it. I mean, way back in the lessons, there's a lesson that says that the affirmation is, I am very holy. And that was like that was like the jolt. Like, this doesn't make, what? I don't understand. What's that mean? And of course, what it means this really simple thing, that we are as God created us. Regardless of what we have tried to do with that in our own, like, small ego self, in our own self-absorption, right, in our own separation. We remain. And this is a lesson that comes over and over again. We remain as we were created. And it has that very loaded word in the lesson, in the actual prayer part of the lesson, that says sin. And of course, what we want to clarify when we talk about that here, that we say that's a mistake. That first of all, it's a mistake that you're holding it against yourself and that you're holding it against anyone else, but that the thing itself that you believe, or that someone else may believe, is a sin, is just a mistake. And also, again, a mistaken idea as to the nature of it and what it is and what it means, and it's important because it's important to say this, because that means that no matter what it is that you think you've done, thought, said, left undone, it is not an indelible stain upon your soul. And no matter what you think someone else has done, said, thought, or not done, it is not an indelible stain upon their soul either. It's very important that we get both of those things, because if we hold anything against our brother or ourselves, either one, it doesn't matter. We're part of it. We're in it. We're in the mix then. So that doesn't mean that we don't do it, because in the small self we are doing it. But that's the purpose of the path. That's the purpose of the lesson. That's the purpose of spiritual practice. Not just our spiritual practice that we're gathering together doing here. And by the way, each one of us is doing something just a little bit different. We may espouse the ideas. We may be able to gather together and discuss the ideas, and it seems as if we're talking about the same thing, but we're really not, because each one of us is having a different experience, and that's okay. That's how it is. Because in this temporarily we are separate, and we have different perceptions, and we have different ideas about ideas. But we are all moving towards what this lesson was talking about, really remembering our source. Remembering meaning to truly know. And this knowledge of our source is beyond our thinking. This is why it says that it is beyond our own ability to understand or know. That the point of that is, it's not that we are somehow limited intellectually, although that may be true. It is that individually, when we are thinking of ourselves as our separate selves, we can't see that picture, because this picture of our holiness can only be seen from the point of view of us. It can only be seen from the point of view of being united, in harmony, together, right? And so alone, we miss it. we got some ideas about it, we can interpret some symbols, but when we're feeling alone, we miss it. And what happens, the most wonderful thing starts happening, these things that when we begin to do these practices and read these lessons or whatever spiritual literature that we're working on, when we begin to immerse ourselves in these principles, things start happening that we don't expect. Suddenly, in the midst of a crisis, we'll find ourselves able to be the peacemaker. We will find ourselves able to, we will all of a sudden we will see things not from our own self-centered perspective, but from a perspective of the common welfare, what's best for everyone involved. We will have a sense of connection, not because we not because we used our own self-will and said, I'm gonna get connected. By God and by golly, today is the day I'm going to get connected. It's because we start doing this practice and these ideas begin to work on the surface and then underneath the surface, and all of a sudden experiences begin to happen where we start feeling this oneness from time to time. And this then, in those moments, that's when we actually feel the holiness that the lesson is talking about. And so it's never insulting us when any of these lessons, whenever they say that we can't, we can't understand it and we can't do it, it's always talking about from the perspective of being a single one. We have this saying in this other place that I go, it says that we say, I can't, we can. This is really the principle. This is the principle here, that it's together that these things are accomplished. And so this is leading up to, by the way, tomorrow lesson 300 says, only an instant does this world endure. And this is kind of, it's really the idea that when we finally do really come together and really forgive all of these past mistakes and our brothers, that the world of separateness will disappear. And so it's saying an instant. So actually it says that when we made the mistake, and we'll go back again to this, the metaphysical story of the Garden of Eden, when we made the error and ate, it's a symbol, it's not history, okay? So we eat from the tree of knowledge of good and evil, that when we made this error, there was instantly, in that instant, the solution was already presented. We just decided not to take the solution right off the bat. And so we've been spinning around ever since then. But actually, in terms of eternity, all this spinning around, you may think you've been doing this for a long time. You may have a sense, some of us may be thinking that this life has been kind of long and it's been an up and down kind of journey. But you may also have a bigger sense and be thinking that you've been doing this a lot longer than this particular life. We really don't have any opinion about that, but we think that's a possibility. And so, but if you have that sense, doesn't matter how long you think it was, it doesn't matter. You may think, the Course actually says at the beginning, it took 1,000,000 years for you to get the way you are now, so have some patience. But what it's saying is, even if it took 1,000,000 years, even if you have a sense that you've been messing around with this for 1,000,000 years, one way or another, for 1,000,000 freaking years you've been messing around with this, that the fact of the matter is that's an instant. That is an instant in terms of eternity. It's nothing. Blink of an eye. So there's this story in the New Testament, in Book of Revelation. And I'll just give a little background about this book of Revelation. It's attributed, depending on what translation and what edition you get, but the book of Revelation says is written by John, and that implies that it's written by St. John. If you're a Catholic, you'd think St. John. But John, the Apostle John, and this is just totally not true. We know for sure that this is not true. It's even in the text itself. It was written by John of Patmos. And the story was actually written as like a political satire or a parody, a poking at the Roman Empire. And all the references in Book of Revelation to the beast and all of this kind of stuff can be traced right back to the people's opinion of Rome at the time, because Rome had them in their grip. And of course it was a forward-looking story. It was a story about that there was going to be some deliverance from this. And not only that, because people were upset about the mistreatment over the years, there's also this undercurrent of punishment that is going to occur. And but the story really was understood quite well at the time as to what it was. It was never written to be some prophecy of future events. And it almost didn't even get into the Bible when the church fathers met together, but the reason it got in was because it was such a popular story that they were like forced to put it in there. One of the reasons why it didn't get in is because now Rome had adopted Christianity as the state religion, and the story was known to be poking at Rome. But it got in anyway. It got in, and but there's a part of the story that says that that eventually Jesus is going to, he's coming back, right? Jesus is coming back, and he's going to reign upon the earth for 1,000 years. There's going to be a reign of peace upon the earth for 1,000 years. And now, if you take that literally, like many churches say, this is how we have to take it literally, well, that seems then to fly in the face of this idea that's also promulgated around, that when you die, if you're in good graces, you go to heaven. Because that's not what this story says. This story says that those dead are dead. They're dead in the ground, and that Jesus is going to call them back to life when he comes to do this 1,000-year deal, right? And so that's confusing to me. What? Which one? I mean, you see now through a glass darkly, but then you will see in full, right? So this is what Paul's trying to explain, all these contradictions when he says this stuff. That, yeah, in other words, it's a mystery. Don't worry about it now. God's got it taken care of. Well, the good news is that he actually does have it taken care of, and you don't have to worry about it, because it's not telling you, it's not saying this thing that's actually going to happen in that way. I just want to give so this is what the text, when I sent the text out today, I said we're going to talk about seconds. We're going to talk about the second coming. We're talking about, listen, I got to tell you something. I went to PK Diner for lunch yesterday. All right, now I'm not going to do this again. I'm promising that I am not doing this again. But I went there and I asked her, I said, what should I eat? And this is like the second coming, I'm just telling you. So that's why I'm going off like this. So I go there and I say, what should I eat? And she says, you're just going to have the cheeseburger. I said, what? I have the cheeseburger? I mean, I'm thinking, something a little bit more than a cheeseburger. She said, yeah, you're going to like it. So she brings the cheeseburger. I go along with the program, right? She brings the cheeseburger out, and the cheeseburger doesn't have buns. It has a grilled cheese sandwich on the bottom and a grilled cheese sandwich on the top. So the buns are 2 grilled cheese sandwiches, right? And then there's this gigantic hamburger patty in the middle with a fried egg and bacon on the top of that, and all of this sauce. It was like this tall. So I started to eat this thing. The bread was sweet. And buttery. You see what I'm talking about when it says like the second coming? It was beautiful. It was freaking paradise, this cheeseburger. So there's a person. These people sitting next to me. They know that I'm having an adventure, and the woman says, "Is it good?" And I said, I'm about to start crying right now. So I ate most of it, but I'm going to tell you, it was really good eating it, right? It wasn't so good afterwards. I knew that I'd eaten too much, and it was like totally totally outside of generally what I want to eat. But listen, one time in your life, you should have that cheeseburger.
Breakfast is awesome too.
It is. Breakfast is wonderful up there. It's wonderful. The food's fantastic. It's good to go up there and share, like go up and share food. It's not inexpensive, but everything, the tip and the tax is all built in, and anyway, it's wonderful. What was I talking about before that?
Seconds.
PK Diner up there. All right. So this 1,000-year thing. I was thinking about what this lesson is saying about the lesson for tomorrow is saying only an instant does the world remain, right? And I was thinking about this time thing. This time thing is really tricky. Sometimes, now isn't this your experience, that sometimes it seems like stuff takes a really long time? Like it's like dragging, like, man, when is this going to get over? Generally, it's when you're watching the clock, like you're doing some task that you wish you didn't have to do, or that you're anticipating some future event that you're sure is going to transport you to happiness. And the time to get there just seems like forever. And then other times, the time's like just compressed and it's over so fast that you can't, it's just so it's subjective. Time is subjective. And it depends, again, it's all about perception. But the course, and not only the course, but science is telling us that it's not what we think it is. That it's really not what we think it is. It's not linear the way we think it is. It's just, that's not what's going on. So it seems to us that these events are one event following another, and it stretches out into time. But what they're telling us is it's all there already. So that opens up all kinds of interesting questions about how many streams of time are there, and because you got these choices that you think you're making, right? What if you made the other choice? What if you did? What if actually what was going on was you made all of those choices at every choice? Or just saying, it gets like it boggles the mind, right? But so regardless, but when you're thinking about separation and it's all being separated, what's to stop us from considering the idea that even what we see as our small self has separated a number of times, and we've got these multiple streams. Oh, I know I'm getting too freaky now. I'm sorry. I'm going to stop right now. I'm going to stop that. So go back to the point. The point about this idea is that Jesus coming back, let's think about it a different way. Let's think about the second coming. Well, here's what it says. Christ's second coming, which is as sure as God, is merely the correction of mistakes and return to sanity. So Christ's second coming. So what this is talking about, and what many spiritual paths are talking about, is this Christ presence, or you could call it the Buddha nature, that when this comes to us, to our consciousness, it's already there. When it comes to our consciousness, what it is it is a correction of mistakes. In other words, let me say it this way, some way that you may have heard it before. The forgiveness of sins. The correction of mistakes. And return to sanity. And here it's talking about sanity in the purest form that you can imagine. Sanity as being wholeness. Health and wholeness of mind. And, of course, what this is telling us is that mind is all there is. So health and wholeness of mind means health and wholeness of everything. So the second coming then is the forgiveness of sins, the correction of mistakes, and the return to wholeness. No more separation. No more. And this is I think important. Because when that occurs then, all of the misperceptions that we've had about the world being this dangerous, scary, fearful place where we are at odds with our brothers and sisters, all of that fades away. And we have, and the Course actually describes it, that for an instant we see, instead of a world at war, we see the paradise that is really there. The paradise that all of this time we have been messing with in our own minds, trying to make it something else, contrary to God's will. which is impossible. By the way, it tells us very clearly, you think you have gone against God's will. That's where you got the idea that you're sinning in the first place. But it is impossible to go against God's will. It is a dream that you are having. So the second coming, it is the part of the condition that restores what was never lost. It's the part of the condition that restores what was never lost. So here again it's saying you're in an illusion that you had lost this connection. But the second coming is going to restore, it's going to reestablish what was forever and forever true. It is the invitation to God's word that it take illusion's place. God's word, by the way, this is like really, we just think about word, love. It is an invitation for love to take fear's place, illusion's place. The willingness to let forgiveness rest upon all things without exception and without reserve. So the second coming is when we can forget all the little petty judgments that we have put on ourselves and on all other people in our lives. This is the second coming. The restoration to sanity and the forgiveness of all of those things that kept telling us that we were separate from all of those things. It is the all-inclusive nature of Christ's second coming that permits it to embrace the world, the whole world, and hold you safe within it. Now it's getting to salvation. Talking about some salvation now. It just means safety. Salvation just means safety. Think about it this way. We go through life so scared all the time. Things are happening. There's threats on every hand. I'm not talking any more about the political stuff that's been coming to me on my phone over and over again. It's a disaster.